Welcome to another Thinking Talks episode. My name is Margherita Movarelli. I am the head of communications and marketing at the Morten Center, and I'm pleased to introduce as our guest for today's episode of our Thinking Talks, Aura Salla, recently elected as a member of the Parliament of Finland. Previously, Aura was the public policy director and head of EU affairs at Meta in Brussels. She also served as a foreign policy advisor to the European Commission and as an advisor for communication and outreach at the European Political Strategy Center. Let's have a look with her at what is happening in Finnish and European politics. Welcome, Aura, and congratulations on your recent election as a member of the Finnish Parliament. The recent elections in Finland led to a significant victory for the National Coalition Party in the country and resulted in a shift in power. What do you think were the main factors behind this election result and the victory of the National Coalition Party?
First of all, many thanks for having me here today, now as elected politician. Well, there are many factors that affected the election results for sure. But however, I would argue that Finnish voters voted undeniably for a change. The change in a government's economic and fiscal policies, change in a leadership. Finnish parliamentary excellence were framed as a vote for prime minister, and Petteri Orpo won the race, right? Also, the National Coalition Party has consistently supported Finland's NATO membership, and I believe that this built credibility in the eyes of the voters.
The process of forming a government is at the moment underway in Finland. What are the possible scenarios and what factors likely influence the outcome?
Yeah, the National Coalition Party is starting now the governmental negotiations with Finnish Party, the Christian Democrats of Finland, and the Swedish People's Party of Finland. These negotiations will take approximately a month or two, and we will see these parties forming the governmental program for the country. Let's see how the negotiations will go. There will be several key topics, economy being number one priority for sure, migration, economy of the European Union, and climate will most likely be the topics where we will have the toughest negotiations. From my understanding, one of the main criteria of Finnish voters during these elections was really the worry of the public expenditure and in general fear of the economic resilience of the country. So this is where my party will for sure focus now in these negotiations.
Indeed, from my understanding, one of the main criteria of Finnish voters during these elections was public expenditure and, in general, fear of the economic resilience of the country. What do you see as the biggest challenge for the economy of Finland, and how do you expect to cope with the rising inflation in the EU and in your country?
As we all know, we saw consumer prices rose at an exceptionally high rate in 2022. And energy prices fell sharply towards the end of the year. So I'm confident that this year the upward pressure of consumer prices will ease. Inflation this year, it's expected to be something about 4.6, if I remember correctly. But I think that we have high hopes that we will return to below 2% next year. But it will require some changes, immediate reforms also from my country. The long-term weakness of Finland's economic development and general government finances confronts decision makers with difficult choices. And we will be the ones making these difficult choices for this country, and also we will be the responsible government of doing so. The outlook has been further weakened by the crisis of the past years, as we all know. Measures that directly affect general government expenditure and revenue plays a key role here when we strengthen the general government finances in Finland right now. In addition to such measures, Finland also needs really ambitious structural reforms to support this economic growth, employment, and general government finances. Competitiveness will be one of the main focuses also for this government. And it also requires that we will do this together with other European countries, and we will make sure that our single market and our trade policies at the European Union level supports this economic growth also in Finland.
Just before the elections, we saw the end of Finland's neutrality and witnessed the historical moment of Finland becoming a member of NATO. Taking you back to your experience as a foreign policy advisor at the European Commission, I would like to ask you, what do you expect of Finland's membership in NATO, and what is your opinion on how this membership and the efforts of Sweden to join NATO as well would impact the relations with Russia?
That Finland's historical position of neutrality did end along with our EU membership already back in 1995. Nevertheless, it is a historical decision, and myself and my party, we will do our utmost best that we will be trustworthy, we will be proactive, and we will be collaborative ally in NATO. And our first act as a country will be that we will ratify Swedish membership in NATO. This will be a strong symbolic gesture which underlines the importance of the Swedish membership for the alliance. The relationship with Russia suffered deeply, and I don't see that we can form such a relationship we have had with the country anytime soon. Right now, we need to focus supporting Ukraine, and we will need to make sure that we will have the defense capacity in the EU to do so. We need to be able to send weapons to Ukraine much faster than we do right now. And we need to forget this idea that we need to only produce these weapons in the EU. We also need third countries to do so, because we need to act now, or then it will be too late.
Aura, getting back to your experience in European affairs, you come from Finland, and the Nordic countries do have an exciting relationship with European integration. What is your opinion on the main challenges in relations of the Nordics with the EU? And when it comes to party politics, do you see a positive trend for the EPP coming from Nordic countries and potentially spreading elsewhere in Europe?
Absolutely. I think it's wonderful right now that we have governments in Finland and in Sweden led by an EPP leader. I'm looking forward to having a very good collaboration with our Swedish sister party. What will be the main drivers right now is that Nordic states, as always, we are proactively supporting strengthening EU's economy and competitiveness. We want to see single market that actually flourishes and make sure that our companies can grow in our home market. Also, where I want to focus and where my party wants to focus is building new trade agreements. I already said that I think we need to think again our TTIP negotiations with the USA. I think it will be for the next commission to do so. And I think that Nordic countries and our parties will be drivers in this, because we believe that we will see our companies flourish and grow and to be those digital champions, for example, that we have been talking about for such a long time, only if we will have a home market where they can grow and a trade policy that supports our competitiveness.
You have seen both sides of the European bubble work at the institutions and working for the private sector, and more specifically the public affairs of a big company. As transparency is always a hot topic in Brussels, what is your opinion about how public affairs and lobbying work here in Brussels?
I would say that there is transparency definitely in Brussels what comes to lobbying. Seeing both sides, being in the cabinets and be lobbied by the companies, and then also being in a big American company lobbying the EU institutions, I would say that this is transparent. We have a transparency register. You can also request meeting notes from the Commission, for example, if some high-level CEOs or other people from the companies are meeting our EU officials, you can request notes from those meetings. This is something that supports our democracy for sure. What I am worried about is corruption right now. These cases that we saw in the European Parliament, this is more than worrying, and this is something that the next European Parliament needs to really address already now and make sure that all our actions and how behaviors in the Parliament are transparent, and these kind of corruption cases cannot be seen at the European level, nevertheless not in the national level. However, one thing that I want to say as a Finnish politician is that we don't have this kind of transparency register in Helsinki. So we need to also make sure that this happens at the national level, that people know what kind of impacts different meetings, different lobbying actions can have to our democracy.
I know that you have extensive knowledge of the financial crisis of 2010 and how it influenced the EU. As a matter of fact, you have written a PhD on this topic. Do you believe the EU has managed to learn from its past and its mistakes and build its resilience and crisis management mechanisms?
One thing that I am particularly worried right now is that the European Commission is becoming more and more political. This trend started in the Juncker Commission and it has continued. I think that technocratic commission is the best possible way of forming the institution also to support smaller member states like Finland. And I think its role needs to be much more technocratic than it has been in the past 8 to 9 years. And this is one of the worrying trends that I also saw in my research. We need to still be better at also building resiliency in the EU. We really need to decrease dependency we still have with China, for example. We need to make sure that our global supply chains are not impacted by this kind of a crisis that we have been seeing in the last couple of years so heavily. And also one of the main factors, of course, is that we need to strengthen our public debt sustainability, and we really need to promote sustainable and inclusive growth throughout the European Union and make those necessary structural reforms and investments. And also one thing that I would like to underline is that we need stronger national ownership with comprehensive short-term, medium-term and long-term plans based on common European rules, making sure that economy in all member states will grow in upcoming years, because that's the only way that we can have a sustainable economy in the whole euro area and in the whole EU. Last but not least, I would still say that we have war in Europe, and if we cannot win this war, and if we cannot win also the climate crisis, those are the two factors that will be crucial for our resiliency, or nothing else really matters. So we need to focus to supporting Ukraine no matter what. We need to resolve the climate crisis, and then we need to build sustainable economy to build the overall resiliency in the EU.
Aura, coming to one of the most interesting and timely debates held in Europe and worldwide, artificial intelligence. Elon Musk said, and I quote, "AI could lead to civilization destruction." What is your opinion about artificial intelligence and its potential advantages and disadvantages for our society?
AI has a huge potential when it comes to our economy and our future, when it comes to education, training, access to information. AI could improve our healthcare. We could have safer cars and other transport, and let's say cheaper, longer lasting products and services. It could help our circular economy targets, and it could help us to do dangerous jobs and open also new opportunities for AI-driven industries to grow and change our societies. However, one thing that we need to underline is liability. Who is responsible for damage caused by AI? Let's say that we will have a self-driving car, and there will be damage caused by this car. Who is responsible for that? We need to also remember that AI requires a lot of data, and we need to understand how we secure privacy, how we secure that data collected is done responsibly. So there are many factors to take into account, but I would still say that AI is already here, but it's also the future. And if the EU wants to build these digital champions, it requires a lot of data, it requires AI and responsible use of these new technologies.
I know that there is a topic that you have extensively discussed and worked on, and that's disinformation. It is becoming more and more evident that disinformation constitutes a significant threat globally and at the European level as well. Are we doing enough to fight this monster, and what other steps could the European Union and the member states on a national level take to tackle the issue?
First of all, I would like to start by saying that we need to make the difference between disinformation and misinformation. We can still see that in public debate, these two are mixed. So disinformation is something that is organized by, let's say, a third country. There is a systemic approach doing disinformation, impacting our elections, our democracy. And then there is misinformation. That is something that sometimes maybe all of us, we are writing blog posts, we are writing Facebook posts, and we might not know all the facts. It's not the research, it's our own opinion, and we are, of course, responsible for our opinions. However, it's okay if you write that you believe in God, even though you cannot prove that scientifically. So we should not mix these two things. In the EU, we have now new rules. We already code on practice on disinformation. Now we have the DSA also tackling fake news, malicious influential operations, what we have in the EU. However, one thing that worries me still is that hate speech is left to the member states. And even though I am slacking for freedom of speech, I think there needs to still be some kind of rules when it comes to hate speech. And that we need to tailor make, of course, to our cultures at a national level. But I would still say that the EU needs to also have some rules and clear guidance how we tackle this in different platforms in the future.
Finally, let's take a look at the future. What do you foresee or wish for the European Union as country prepares for the next 2024 European elections and for Finland, which just voted?
What I'm expecting is that we focus on Ukraine and climate action as number one topics. As I said, those are the two topics that if we don't get those right, if we don't win this war or we don't solve this crisis, nothing else really matters. So those are the number one topics for the next year's elections for sure. However, we need to focus on EU's competitiveness. We need to build our resiliency in the EU. And also we need to finally make sure that we have a European single market that supports our economy. It enables, it doesn't build new rules, but it makes sure that our companies can grow. And I would also like to see that we will start new trade negotiations with the USA. I think that's something for the next commission for sure. Energy, digital markets are the things that will for sure be topics for the next year's election. And last but not least, I would like to also raise the point that young people in Europe, they are the future of Europe. So it's not only Erasmus Plus program, it's youth in total that I would like to see having a strong voice in the next year's elections.
Thank you very much, Aura. Thank you all for watching. You can find out more about our Thinking Talks interviews and about other activities of the Martin Center on our website and social media platforms. See you next time.